Welcome, everyone. I think we can start maybe. I thought maybe today we can touch upon something different, a different topic again in the same book by Rishabhchand ji in the Mother's Light. And one topic that I just kind of uh, stumbled at. Just a second. Yeah, this can go up. Yeah. So this one, I thought since many of us wonder about how to realize the psychic and how that psychic comes forward. So I thought maybe it would be nice to go through this. And before this, he also talks about um, the mission of the psychic being and about the psychic being in the beginning, the origin and nature of the psychic being. So I'm not touching upon these aspects. We can read by ourselves also when we get inclined. But I thought maybe today we can maybe take up this one, how to realize the psychic. It would be, I think, revelatory, I'm assuming. Yeah. So let's start. How to realize the psychic. So anyone who would like to go ahead and read it out aloud is welcome to unmute and read.
Yeah, Monica, I'll read.
Okay, sure. Yes.
Yeah. The soul or the psychic. How to realize the psychic. If it is true that the psychic is our true self, and that is only when we identify ourselves with it, that we can become real individuals. Sorry, Monica, just for a second. Mira has joined another room, so it is echoing here. One minute, I'll just close the door. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Then it is obvious that nothing should be regarded as more pressingly important in life than the discovery and realization of the psychic. Of what avail our humanitarian strivings, our struggles to reform others, to help others, to enlighten others, so long as we are ourselves unregenerate, helplessly tossed between the dualities of good and evil, success and failure, gain and loss, honor and dishonor, and pain and pleasure, so long as we are floundering in ignorance and torn between the conflicting tendencies of our heterogeneous being, self realization, which is the most pressing problem of our life, can be shelved for some time, for even a long time, if you will, but you cannot shelve it forever. Your soul insists on being recognized and given an effective voice in your life. It is a subtle device of the ego, and it has its utility in the evolution of our being to shift its focus of interest from its grossly selfish desires to the service of others. But whether it seeks petty personal satisfactions or the satisfaction of the collectivity, it remains essentially what it is. All that it does as a step to self improvement is to rise from the restricted field of restless rajasic cravings to the comparative poise and wide, lucid outlook of the Rajaso Sattvic nature. But Sattvic ego is even stronger than the Rajasic ego, and being justified in its own eyes and even in the eyes of society. It is more difficult to get rid of. Many an honest philanthropy comes out of of his benevolent obsessions, a disillusioned man, stung by the discovery of the corroding canker of the ego, the base self, in what he had fondly believed to be his selfless work. Selfless work, yes. How can an action be selfless so long as our ego, the false self, has not faded in the eternal radiance of our true self, the psychic, deluded by the ego? We hug the illusion of disinterested work and drown the inner urges to self discovery in the fervor of social and humanitarian activities. But however beneficial the activities may be, however much they may help the world and the development of our being, they are not an outcome of knowledge and cannot, therefore, be a substitute for the action which wells out of the depths of the psyche. For the activities of the psychic are directed by the will of the divine and carry in them not only the fiat and force of the divine, but also the light of his knowledge, which knows what is best for the world and for each of its beings and things. To live in the psychic is to be in tune with the divine will and work in the unfaltering steps of truth. Beautiful but very long paragraph. I think we need to read it once more so that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for reading it out. Yeah, it's a long one. We'll go over slowly again.
Yeah.
I think this little line that came here where he says that, yeah, this one I think was very visual. Uh, so long as our ego, the false self, has not faded in the eternal radiance of our true self. Usually we are trying to fight with the ego. Many of us, we are, oh, when will this ego go? Oh, it is still there. And one of the ways which, for example, Mother Shri Aurobindo talk about is first step is finding the psychic being. At least embarking upon the journey to try to identify or find the psychic being. And it's almost like a visual which can be used here is just like, in the night time, we have street lamps which are giving us light because there is no light. So it is good to use that artificial light which can be of help. But when the sun is out, then even when those lights are on, they are meaningless because in the brightness of the sun, there is hardly any use of that little street lamps, which in night were very helpful. So the ego self and the true being, the psychic individuality is, I can see that almost that kind of a relation here that when we are in darkness trying to find our feet, then a temporary personality comes out as the ego self, a sense of this is me, that is not me. But in the radiance of our true self, he says that the ego has to fade away. Just like in the radiance of sun during the day, the nighttime lamps have no meaning, they just fade away. And we don't have to then fight those little lamps that, oh my God, what do I do with these little lamps? So no fighting is required because the more we fight with the ego self, the more stronger we make it, become. So that fighting is not necessary, rather than cultivation of something true and honest and sincere in us. And all of us have all the abilities and very unique permutations and combinations of abilities and natural inclinations, what we call as swabhava. So we have to nurture and foster our already innate goodness and qualities and abilities so that in the nurture of that, the little already becomes very trivial and slowly gradually is rendered meaningless. So I like this particular line a lot. Yeah. Any thoughts? Any reflections here? Anyone?
Yes, I feel it's very in line with something we were reading last time, some days ago, like the the ethical aspect, the ethical development. All this is, it has its place in our growth, but the spiritual path aims at something substantially different than just a sattvic ego, which is a necessary stage, probably. Um, uh, yes, like maybe sometimes some spiritual path makes some arrangement like this, like giving some commandments or things to take into account in an ethical manner, and it has its importance for giving shape to a more sattvic ego, like it says here, but we have to go beyond that. And it's interesting this, that like this sattvic ego, this it's this maybe philanthropic ideas we have, it can be more difficult to get rid of this, because we believe it's something spiritual. It's really an interesting point.
Yeah. I think when you were sharing, it comes to me that this Buddhist idea of uh, stickiness and non-stickiness, I think that really helps me a lot here. Because as you were sharing that some aspects are necessary on the path in spiritual progress, and we may make use of them. But the problem is when we become too sticky to those aspects and we become very rigid, and that's where we develop a very spiritual, dogmatic, kind of an ego becomes rigid. So the whole point is lost. So that stickiness and becoming non-sticky in the process, uh, to see that no matter how far we may have come, still the stickiness stays. And it's a lifetime of a vigilance to be careful that what am I now sticking to. And I was reading something on physical consciousness, and Sri Aurobindo was talking about, usually we talk about flexibility and plasticity in physical consciousness. And he was sharing that it's very difficult for the physical consciousness to be plastic, because physical consciousness is a bundle of habits. So for example, I may have a habit of brushing my teeth at a particular time for 20 years. Now I become too rigid in that habit. And when that is not happening, it's like I become restless. Oh my God, it's 10 o'clock and I have not brushed my teeth. So that's where he was saying that the physical ego, as you were sharing, that each discipline has its own purpose on the path. So the physical aspects, each habit has a different purpose on the path. Like each discipline I may cultivate, like getting up at this point in the morning or sleeping at a proper time in the evening. It may have its own importance. But when we cross that phase, it's very important to be flexible, because not to stick too much with my times, my routines, and oh my God, what would happen if I don't do my practice at this time in the morning or night or whatever. And we see many inspirational examples, we have in the senior sadhaks in the ashram, like Champak Lalji, the first one that we touched upon, that how he had no times for eating, no times for, sleeping. Whenever he got time, he slept. Whenever he got time, he ate. The only thing that was pressing on him is, how can I serve? How can I serve? That's it. So, and Sri Aurobindo was sharing that physically being flexible and plastic, and yet also disciplined, but not too rigid in our discipline, not too tight, not too sticky. So that is the physical plasticity, like flexibility in physical consciousness, which is he was saying that it's hard to cultivate. Yes, Shadaji.
Yeah, very interestingly, Monica, today I was speaking to, one of my relatives. She was sharing that, from her childhood, she will, whenever she was playing also, she would come running home and she will light the lamp at 5:45 in the evening and she will start reciting some particular shloka. So even now she's continuing, she must be about 75 now. So she was saying, I cannot be without doing that. So she was saying that, God will be waiting for me. If I don't do that, then my head will break. Whichever house she will go and light the lamp without their permission also, because she cannot resist that. So I could, resonate with what Sri Aurobindo, what you said, how Sri Aurobindo said, physical plasticity is very difficult.
Yeah, good example. Yes. And I think again the point of stickiness and too much, rigidity about my ideas, my discipline, my routine. I think again that we see that it can just come up anytime. It doesn't matter whether I have been 10 years in sadhana, 20 years, 30 years. I can still be a sticky, person in various aspects. And that is where vigilance is required, because if I'm not vigilant, then I have become a cult or a dogma, and the whole purpose of walking the spiritual path is just somehow diluted in between. And
but
I think
unfortunately, people won't, so many times they don't understand this is stickiness. All of us, not only, others, even we have so much in ourselves, but we think we are very proud that, I am able to do this on time.
Yeah. I think we can't do much about people. As you said, we can only look at ourselves and do some work there. Yeah.
So that, goes to tell us, how much you are like that. I was asking myself. See, it is very easy to comment on, somebody else. But, how much we have that same rigidity in our routine.
Yeah. So in case of works also, Sri Aurobindo talks about this flexibility in works. And again, that in the same reading, there was like, what is true surrender in works? So Mother says that if you are doing a work which you feel you are meant to do, and if you are not ready to leave it instantly, like a call comes and that call says that this just has to be left, and without any tension, without any worry, if you are able to do that instantly, although you were earlier doing it like, you're meant to do this. It's not that you are following a shallow work, you're following a deeper work. But Mother says, even in following that deeper work, deeper call, one has to have such kind of a flexibility and openness. This is what is true surrender, that not even an inch in you should move if suddenly you are asked now not to do that work anymore. Wow. And again, that stickiness, because to everything that we do, we become very sticky. Now, this is my work, I am doing it, this is part of my identity, and that is where it becomes like a burden. It loses its essence. So many things I think to see that we have to work. There's lots of work still remaining in us.
Yes, yes.
From time
Each
to
and
time we.
every activity shows us, I have seen in myself when Meera and me, I know, arrange flowers in the room, mother's
Mhm.
room. So I always feel that, my ego comes there. I will not, outwardly, I may not say anything to Meera, but, I am, no, this has to be like this. My mind will keep on, repeating the same mantra. But, I will
Yes.
offer immediately to the mother, no, mother, I should not have this, let her do. Everything
Yeah.
is an offering. So she is also doing, it's not that I'm great. Even
Mhm.
I was like that, slowly I'm also learning. She is also learning, we can,
Mhm.
very well see, like a mirror, how much
Mm.
ego we have inside.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
Yeah. Yeah. Even in cooking, even in, drying the clothes, my ego comes, I'm able to see that beautifully. I'm able
Mhm.
to see that, we are also trying to change that.
Yes.
No, don't open your mouth.
Yes.
Don't open your mouth.
Mhm.
It's okay. Let
Yeah.
it be like that. But which is very difficult,
It
It
is
just
difficult,
comes.
no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
just comes out like, fountain.
Yeah.
In
And I
Savitri,
think
one
this is
line
a
comes, no? Yeah.
yes, yes, please. Yeah. Hmm.
No, Sri
Go ahead.
Aurobindo says he uprooted ego with something, one line will come, no? Bleeding roots, one line will come.
Mm. Oh, okay. Bleeding roots.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find it.
I forgot the line because, when Dr.
Yeah,
Premananda
yeah.
Kumar,
Got that.
yeah,
Yes,
you
just
got
a
it.
second.
Can you read?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'll bring it in front. This one you are sharing. He
He
tore
tore
desire
desire
up.
up. Yeah.
Mm. Mm. I think this is also what you were sharing is a desire only that, my way should be followed.
Yeah.
My way is the best way. And for each one of us, I think the more we look at it in our own self that, oh, I consider my way to be the best. The other person is also thinking the same way that, what I am doing is right. So I think, and again, as you were sharing that it is first of all beautiful to be able to see that how rigidly we associate and identify with my way of doing it. And then I think then we can little bit open up and give others also space to explore their own being.
Yeah.
Because when we are working, when we are doing stuff and making errors, making mistakes, or flowering, whatever, that's our process of blossoming. That's how we all blossom. So if we are giving other persons freedom to do the errors, make the mistakes, find the correct, whatever image and picture as you were sharing in the Rangoli, so I think it's like opening your heart up
Yeah.
uh, to others.
But,
Yeah.
Monica, that is very tiring. Entire day, how many times our ego comes up?
Yeah.
In a day, if we count, there is no end for this. I used to wonder at myself, you think you are
Mm.
great, but it is not so. Other people are also great.
Yeah.
How many times we have to tell ourselves? And maybe, as you always say, it's a lifetime practice. We have to keep practicing.
You know, on the other hand, it seems to me that we can be really we can consider ourselves blessed one because we are able to practice. I know it's tiring, it's very difficult, and that's why they say it's warrior, all of us who
Yeah.
are on that path, warrior, surma, like
Yeah.
Aryan spirit.
Yeah.
Because it is challenging. But the thing is that there are times in our lives when we are on our hanging between death and life, when we can't practice.
Yeah.
So although it is difficult right now, it is challenging right now, but isn't it beautiful that we can practice?
Yeah, that is also true. Yeah.
I think that really kind of, makes you jump back. That's okay. I can practice, so let me practice. I know it is tiring. I know it's challenging. I may move in same spirals again and again, but since I can, I must. Because
So
there
beautiful.
will be times with us, all of us who are here, there will be times when we are just, this body, God knows till when it works, and if the intellect, the body, the consciousness says, okay, it kind of says, mera ho gaya, I can't do it anymore, then we can't practice. Conscious practice can't be done then.
True. Beautiful lines.
Yeah.
To keep practicing. Thank you so much. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's completely fine. You didn't interrupt. I interrupted you, my old habit. See, it takes time to change the nature, so.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think whenever I read this line, I feel that how forgetful can we be? I mean, how many times have we read these lines, similar lines, that nothing should be most important than this, Mother says, this discovery of the psychic. But the thing is that we know, all of us know, that in our lives, so many other things become so important than this, you know. And in, I think, prayers and meditations also, this came up that the first that should be preached to all is the union, union with the divine. And work comes second, it comes after that. The first is the union with the divine. But somehow, as Sadaji was sharing, the old darker habits are having such a strong hold that again and again one loses track, one has to remind, and somehow just continue, keep at it, no matter how many times we fall, slip, forget, ignore. So these are very, I feel, very, again, coming back home words, that if it is true that psychic is our true self, and that it is only when we identify ourselves with it that we can become real individuals, then it is obvious that nothing should be regarded as more pressingly important in life than the discovery and realization of the psychic. And this, I think, also was very beautiful here. That self-realization, which is the most pressing problem. Again, I can connect this with the last night's prayer. Again, self-realization, which is the most pressing problem of our life, can be shelved for some time, for even a long time, if you will, but you cannot shelve it forever. Your soul insists on being recognized and given an effective voice in your life. And I think this is what Yuan was pointing at earlier, that from Rajasic cravings, like consumption to fulfill that inner void, and just consuming everything, to a Rajosattvic nature, and then the spiritual ego or the sattvic ego, then even there again, sticky points again and again. So that becomes, even mother says, spiritual ego is even more dangerous, because there we stick to I am good now, that goodness. So as long as we have that any idea of goodness and badness, still we are in the dualistic domain, the conceptual limited mind. This is what Yuan was sharing earlier. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, there is an interesting Buddhist teaching also from the Tantric Buddhist, the Tibetan Buddhism, that it's, I think, has to do with this. It's like relative and absolute bodhicitta. Bodhicitta being probably the awakened mind, or the quality of the awakened mind, and the compassion. So, so the idea in this teaching is like there's a relative bodhicitta, a relative mind that has to do um, with this practice of showing compassion, seeing each other, seeing oneself in the other, and growing good qualities. But this is in the realm of relative mind still. And there's an absolute bodhicitta which it cannot be imagined really. It cannot be grasped mentally, but it has to do with a compassion where there's no more duality, where there are no the real awakened mind, where there's a love that has no object, that has no really concept of one and the other. And when this relative truth, this relative practice helps us to live to this absolute realization. Like, uh, but as Siddhi said here, we have to be aware. We have to take care of not uh, attaching ourselves so much to this relative uh, aspect, and know that uh, this this is still not the mind cannot grasp really uh, the yeah the anything really. It's like a relative thing we use to grow, but uh, this or something like that.
Yes, 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 absolutely. I think good correlation here. So Jetsunma also talks about this, Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo, and she talks about this relative and absolute bodhicitta. And she says, in another words, she says that in the meantime that you are not realized, self-realized, be good, have goodwill in the heart. And Mother also talks about goodwill in the heart, that there is so much ill will in the heart. So to purify that. So absolutely, I think that resonates pretty well here. Yes. That in the meantime that you're not enlightened, you don't have the absolute bodhicitta. You have a good heart, have an open heart, be non-sticky, so practice these paramitas, as they say, the precepts of ethical conduct, generosity, kindness, morality, these kind of things, they talk about. Yeah.
Yes, like the mind, we have a mind for a purpose, and it's useful to help us grow and
Yes.
transcend our crude elements. But it's
Yeah.
not, as Mother would say, the mind is not a tool of knowledge, really.
Yes.
It's just a relative tool to help us grow from the more crude aspects of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we have to
And that's
transcend
why I
that.
think that's why they talk about this training of the mind, because even relatively speaking, if I'm living in the dualistic, logical, analytical mind, wouldn't it be nice if I have a mind which is workable? Like if I ask it to stop, it stops. If I ask it to focus, it focuses. and not that it is just wandering when I want to focus. So that's on the again the relative level, and it's very helpful. Taming, and as mother also talks about, mastering the mind, taming the mind. Yeah. Yes. 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 I think this is what Shadaji was pointing at, and what really a beautiful example. And I'm sure all of us have our own examples that how this corroding canker of the ego, it just gets anywhere. Like you were sharing this example of I'm putting flowers in front of Mother in Shiro window. Now what is the where is the ego coming? Why is the other person not doing it as good as me or how I like it? So again, it can just come anywhere in the ashram, out of the ashram. It doesn't, see like it's baseless. It can just arise anywhere. So to be aware of that, to be vigilant of that, that it can just poison everything that we are doing, no matter how spiritual that may be. Yeah. So again, very beautiful lines, very pointing lines. How can an action be selfless so long as our ego, the false self, has not faded in the eternal radiance of our true self, the psychic? Deluded by the ego, we hug the illusion of disinterested work and drown the inner urges to self discovery in the fervor of social and humanitarian activities. So we keep it at bay. Self discovery, we keep it at bay. We think, no, this is very important. I have to attend to this. Self discovery, that can, be done later. So as I was sharing that in terms of works also, mother says that at any point you should be ready to leave whatever you are doing, no matter how important that work is. That's true attitude towards works. So if I'm not yet able to do that, then it means again, mother says true surrender is not there. Detachment in work is not there. So, but however beneficial the activities may be, however much they help the world and the development of our being, they are not an outcome of knowledge and cannot therefore be a substitute for the action which wells out of the depths of the psyche. Very, very important, I think. That no matter how much importance do I give to my work, that see how much is it helping people. Relative importance might be there, but he says that still it is not comparable to that work which comes out once you have true connection with the psyche. No comparison. You know how beautiful is that? Like, for the activities of the psychic are directed by the will of the divine and carry in them not only the fiat and the force of the divine, but also the light of his knowledge, which knows what is best for the world and for each of its beings and things. So I think this just inspires us to poke less, interfere less, speak less in the worldly, daily, day to day, relative affairs, family affairs, because 10,000 words I may speak through my half lit mind. And if I speak one word through the depth from the psychic, then it is just more weightage to that, because that's coming from truth consciousness, and rest everything, 10,000 words, they have actually no meaning. It's just like a good, maybe bad pass of time, passing the time there. To live in the psychic is to be in tune with the divine will and work in the unfaltering steps of truth. I think I can relate with this with many a times we used to have debates in our school and colleges, and we would see that some of us would prepare their debates like very scholarly, 1 point from here, this book, that book, and we are like, analytically arranging it. And some of us speak like, like Bhagat Singh is speaking, like they're speaking from heart. And no matter how much research the other person has done and may have prepared from his side very good speech, but that one slogan from that person who is just speaking from the depth of his heart, that stays with us, forever. So that's the difference between what he shares here, that what is coming from the psychic is the divine will. It has light, it has knowledge, it has expansion, and it is not. The ego aspect cannot stand uh, in front of this truth and light.
Nice example.
Yeah. So shall we take it forward? I think we read it here until here. Anyone? Anything? Yeah.
Yeah, and just one more thing, what you were sharing, I've noticed that, when somebody is a good speaker, like you were talking about, like Bhagat Singh and all, of course, that's a different thing. But even now, when, say, a political leader would be a good speaker, there's some natural affinity towards it. Like he might not be coming from the right center, and yet because he has that gift of just very strong command over and that connection it feels. So the naturally, I have noticed, like, with President Obama in the US, with Prime Minister Modi, like, not really what they are saying a lot of time, but with the zeal that they are saying. It was very weird that, but, I know he's talking very strongly, but am I even listening to what he's saying? If there's the same promises again and again, we'll make America great again, da, 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 and yet when he's saying something shift, and yet, of course, they were true leader, not wanting to lead. Like I was reading about, Martin Luther King with my child the other day, and how he has that very famous speech that I have a dream, that, the white man and the black man would walk hand in hand. And it wasn't prepared. Like it just happened that a lot of people happened to be in Washington, D.C. because they wanted to protest. And then that, he just started speaking. And one thing just led to the other. And when they were walking, probably they were like maybe 125 people. But because of his speech, like thousands and thousands and thousands started joining because they were just moved. So, one thing was that, yes, this speaking from the heart is, you feel it, right? You just feel that this is something bigger than, this person who's standing here. And yet, like everything else, that too catches or can be used for different agendas. So, again, how we say that with boundless compassion and wisdom, that wisdom aspect, that he's speaking great, but what is he saying? Does it, do I have, should I bow my head down? Or, not really a should, but just that. So, yeah, I'll read.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. So maybe you can take it from here.
But how to discover and realize the psychic? How, you ask me, are we to know our true being? Ask for it, aspire after it, want it as you want nothing else. All urge for perfection comes from it, but you are unaware of the source. You're not collaborating with it knowingly. You are not in identification with its light. Do not think that I refer to the emotional part of you when I speak of the psychic. Emotions belong to the higher vital, not to the pure psychic. The psychic is a steady flame that burns in you, soaring towards the divine and carrying with it a sense of strength which breaks down all oppositions. When you are identified with it, you have the feeling of the divine truth, then you cannot help feeling also that the whole world is ignorantly walking on its head with its feet in the air. A constant and intense aspiration for the psychic, an ardent seeking for it at all times and in all that we do, and a simultaneous rejection of all desires and attachments and self centered interests is the best way to realize the psychic. Aspiration for the psychic is essentially an aspiration for the divine. For the divine dwells in the psychic, and our realization of the psychic is the solitary gate of entry into the presence of the divine within us. Concentrate in the heart, enter into it, go within and deep and far as you can. Gather all the strings of your consciousness that are spread abroad, roll them up, and take a plunge and seek down. A fire is burning there in the deep quietude of your heart. It is the divinity in you, your true being. Hear its voice, follow its dictate. Should I stop here or just finish this paragraph?
Yeah, just finish this one.
Yeah. In the depths of your consciousness is the psychic being, the temple of the divine within you. This is the center round which should come about the unification of all these divergent parts, all the contradictory movements of your being. When you read this, it sounds so simple, right? Like if a child is saying that, how do I get it? And we say, oh, ask for it, right? But I say, oh, I ask for it, but do I, right? Like what it was saying in the before paragraph before, but am I asking for it, right? And our lives are, I don't know, live examples, right? Like if I see where I'm spending my day, I might say big things, but when I see what is my priority, what am I giving importance to, how much time am I, spending in seeking anything or practicing, the truth is right there. So at least now I am not living in this false notion that yes, mere to girdhar gopal dusko na koi. Like at least I'm in truth that I want this, and yet there are parts of me which are also so interested in the illusionary castles of whatever the glitters and stuff. So this is not my priority right now, and that is why I am where I am. So next time when I get a slap, I know that I was not there, and if I don't want a slap again, maybe I can be there. So at least that honesty also, I feel, if it comes, it's a step that recognition of what I'm living, how I'm living it, because it's not possible. Because again, I don't know, speaking just for me, that it's the life is an example that if I wanted something, I have got it, right? Like, and yet if this is where I am right now, there is of course this lack of total, wanting it more than anything else in the world, because still the eyes keep looking outside, something catches the fancy. And yet it's just, in the sunlit path also, there's this passage called pay the price. I don't want to pay, I don't want to do these things. I just say, oh, it's so tough, oh, why is it so, like, I don't want to change, and yet I want everything else around me to change, right? Like people to change, circumstances to change, this divinity to just come out and say that, yes, I am the psychic, and now you go party. That's what we want. But anything that I can do without changing my own self is what I want, and yet it's a fact that not going to happen. And it's simple, really, might sound like big words, and it's not, right?
I think that's why mother would say honesty and sincerity is so important, because only I can know what's happening in me. Only I can know what is most important for me as I go about in my everyday life. And that is how the quality of my life will become, as mother says, the based on the aim that I have in my life. Depending on the aim, that is how the quality of life will become. So, yeah. And for a long time, we keep fooling ourselves, thinking that maybe we are fooling others. But yes, all of us do that. Mm. So, one thing which I'm reminded of here is that unease aspect that mother talks about. Maybe it comes later in this passage also, I don't know, where she talks about this, that if you do anything which is not aligned with the inner divine or your inner truth, or in other words, the psychic, then you feel an unease in your being. And this is the unease which they also talk about when little children, they fight with each other, hurt each other. They also feel unease. And it is good to talk with them about that unease, and then how to bring it back to the ease by either repenting, or maybe apologizing for what they did, or feeling that, oh, I could have done better. So noticing that how much of unease and suffering it brings in the being when we do anything which is not aligned with that inner truth. So that's a very good way mother talks about, to again come back to the track, back to the track, back to the track, because we keep on slipping. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was such a beautiful thing. I just yesterday, it was Valentine's Day, and the children, they had something in the school. They had to make cards for everybody. And my child, he is into Pokemon cards these days. And every day he's like, that person scammed that person, he tried to scam me, I tried to scam him, as if it's not about fun. It's all about just everybody scamming everybody. And it's just like, I have oftentimes spoken to him that why does anybody needs to be scammed, right? But he didn't, it's felt he doesn't get it. So I stopped. I said, okay, it's his age. I keep prompting. But yesterday, while making cards. Although all they had to do was, it was kind of an assignment, ke write the name, to, and then from. Okay, Happy Valentine's Day, to and from. But I told him, write one message, right, that you want towards any child. That would be nice. So he was writing and he couldn't think too much. And yet there was this one boy, and he said, yes, I have something very important to say to him. And I said, what? He said, I really like that you don't scam anybody in Pokemon cards. So, it's like that awareness is there that, that one, he's all right. He does, his intention is not scamming, because I didn't even realize that he is realizing that scamming is not important, because he just would not even, it felt his ears were closed when I was talking about it. So I was very surprised to hear, and I didn't say anything, but we might not think, and yet what you were saying, that even little children, when they are doing these things, they are realizing the good and bad, right? So that was very live for me yesterday. Mm. Mm.
Yeah, very good example. I think more so with little children because their psychic is mostly in front, as mother talks about, and of course, as the ego develops, depending upon how each one gets nurtured, it may go behind for some time. But usually, psychic is in front with little children if they're not too distorted, mother says, like if too much conditioning has not happened of a distorting sort, then it is easier with them to know, okay, this was right, this was not right. Yeah. With adults, it becomes difficult because we have a tendency to fool ourselves so much that we will lie to ourselves, and say, no, this is what was right, what I did, to satisfy the ego. But with little children, it's easier. Yes.
On the fool itself, and on this very topic, I remember, once I had asked Acharya Prashant, it was a live thing when you could sit in front, ask any number of questions. And I had asked him that, now that I know the truth, like, I don't know how those words would come out of my mouth, but they did, that now that I know the truth, I see I'm not be able to become it. Why doesn't truth just come in me? Like, why don't I become the truth now that I seemingly know the truth? And I don't know why he didn't laugh, because I would have laughed if that question came to me from me. But he very patiently said that you have not even paid the first installment. And you're saying that why has the whole, I don't know what word he used, like why has the whole car or the castle delivered to you? What are you giving it, right? That you are saying that why is it not becoming me? So again, but I
Very true.
remember
Yeah.
that when I had asked that question, I did not feel that I don't know it. Like when I know it, why is it not becoming me? So just,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
funny how we can fool ourselves so well, and we see how blind we are to so much of, like, okay, greed, oh, no, I don't have greed. Oh, jealousy, oh, I don't think I've ever
Mm,
touched it, and yet, because we are not watching, we don't see
mm,
those small movements that come, go, and we shrug it. So
mm.
just fooling is slippery
Yeah.
slope.
Yeah. Mother also talks about this, no? I remember this little anecdote, maybe some of us may have read, where talking of supramental realization. Some people came to the mother, not directly, but she heard that some people have come and they're asking that I also want the supramental, something like that. And mother says, why? Why should they get the supramental? What have they given to the divine? Have they, what have they given to the divine that they would be, uh, getting the supra? And on the other hand, in another experience, she describes that she saw a dream, like not exactly a dream, but like something was actually happening in other realms. And this experience is called the supramental boat or something, where she saw that uh, it did not matter how so-called many years in sadhana you were, like when talking about who will cross the shore with the supramental realization, it was just everybody was one, like there was no categorization, like that person is also there, which you thought can't be supramentalized, So that was on the boat also. So something like that. So yeah, yeah. What have we given? I think that's where we try to play clever, that remaining the older self and getting a tight hold on all that I want, this, that. Also, I want this, the divine. So that's our condition. And it never happens like that, somehow.
There's a story, a very small story I read from Ajahn Chah. I don't know how to pronounce if I'm doing it right, but he said that, if you go to a doctor and he writes you a prescription and you read the prescription really well, maybe 100 times, maybe 100,000 times, you read what he has written, you will die because you didn't take the medicine, right? Like, just an example. So he said similarly, Buddha is a healer, right? He is the doctor. He has said many things. But if you just keep reading what he has said, and you don't drink what he's asking you to drink, right? You don't become, if it doesn't get inside of you, but he said that's what happens. We read and we think we have consumed it. It has entered our system. It doesn't. It hasn't.
Beautiful example, Taru. It's really touching. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah. So we are all actually, we are all of us are like that only, We are reading so many things, what the mother has said, what Sri Aurobindo has said, but we are not really practicing. Beautiful. A good eye opener. Thank you.
So I think maybe we can, with this eye-opening comment, we can take a pause here, and maybe take rest of it later. We can go through this passage again next time and take in more what there is. So I think this is very important here, that not only a cultivation but also a rejection, like we do in gardening. Those of us who do some gardening, or at least we see the gardeners doing it. We see that not only do they sow the seeds for the sprouts of flowers to come, but they also do the weeding. So it's the same with I think ourselves, that not only to cultivate and foster good habits, but also to time, as and when we see, to reject everything that continuously keeps us pulling down and down. So it's an active kind of a surrender, as Mother talks about it. Hmm. Okay. So any last comments maybe we can take, and then we can end here today. Remember, this anecdote of Valentine Day that you shared today, just on another note. So, my younger one also came from the school, and he said, after many hours of coming back from the school, he said, yesterday, I think it was, that, Mummy, आपको पता है, it's Valentine's Day today. I said, okay, what's that? आपको नहीं पता? You don't know? Yeah, नहीं, you tell me what is Valentine's Day? What do you do? Like Father's Day, Mother's Day. So what is Valentine's Day? And he said that uh, uh, you give a card to the shopkeepers, that they take so good care of you. And I said, okay, very good, very nice. So do you want to make a card and maybe say thank you? We were in the front of the shop only. And anyway, he didn't agree to that, and he had seen it in some Peppa Pig movie, you know, earlier, many years ago, that on Valentine's Day you give cards to the shopkeepers. So I didn't say any. explanation after that. I thought, good. At 8 years of age, this much is good. Yeah, funny. Okay, so maybe we stop here then, taking last moment of silence to just share, dedicate the merit with all the sentient beings, the clarity, the delight, the understanding of collective reflection of these words, sharing it with all the sentient beings. May our hearts be full, content, minds clarified, simple. May we have lots of joy and progress in life. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.